Welcome back to Odyssey, everybody, and my new series, Swing Thoughts. A variety show where we primarily focus on golf and what I'm doing or working on to improve my golf game, but we also cover a variety of topics like how to keep a positive attitude, how to stay healthy and avoid injuries, and what actionable steps you guys can take to try and achieve your goals. Kind of just an all-around positivity show focused on self-improvement or what we can do to get better at golf and get better at life. This is actually the second episode in our new series, Swing Thoughts. If you guys missed episode 1 on goal setting, you can check the link in the description down below. But I actually felt like that first pilot episode, I was trying a lot of things and it ended up being too long of an episode. So in the spirit of continuous improvement and making things better, I'm going to make this one short and sweet. Enjoy! Alright, since this is still only the second episode in this series, I think for the first couple episodes, I'm just going to do a rundown at the beginning of every episode so you guys know what's going on and what kind of content you guys can come to expect in each of the episodes. And then, God willing, we become popular or this series starts to pick up, people will kind of get what the cadence of each episode is going to be. So, again, this series is called Swing Thoughts, and kind of my premise behind why I wanted to make this series is I wanted to have a better kind of weekly tracking of my results and what I was working on in each of my practices and kind of be able to go back and see, okay, that's what I was working on and those were the swing thoughts that I was thinking, so I can kind of put what I'm thinking in my brain into effect in my swing. So that was kind of the main premise as a visual way of like tracking the data on my swing and continuously improving. But I didn't want to just limit the series to only golf. I wanted to kind of also kind of embody the idea of the Odyssey brand and continuous improvement or just kind of staying positive. So I decided to make this kind of variety show series and also feature some other segments like one that I call Manifest Your Destiny. Not Manifest Destiny, the expanding into the West, but Manifest Your Destiny, which is the one where we're going to be focusing on goal setting, self-improvement, and what are actionable steps you guys can take to achieve your goals. And then I also have some potpourri topics, either about positivity, random things that happen on the golf course, or just like postures and injuries and that kind of stuff. So again, those are the main topics that we'll be talking about today. I'll do this kind of rundown for the first couple episodes, but again, hopefully we kind of pick up and people will start to get the regular cadence of each episode. So with that in mind, let's dive into our Swing Thoughts segment. And today we're going to be going over last week's swings. So I'm going to go ahead, go to the gallery, pull this up, and I'll throw it up on the screen here. But we are looking at September 16th data. So a lot of times what I like to do is at lunchtime, I'll go to the driving range and just get in a small bucket of balls, really focusing meticulously on my swing. So if we're looking at the swing here, and I'm just going to go ahead and pull it up. So I again have the Tommy Fleetwood setup where I have the alignment stick in front of me, the alignment stick for the swing plane, and then I put something in front of the ball to make sure I'm not throwing my hands at it. And what I'm really working on in the swing here is getting a really good depth in my swing, because when I watch the face-on view, I have a tendency to just kind of rock back instead of rotating. And then when I rock back, my backswing is real short. Versus if I'm focused on rotating, I really get that full rotation and I get a really good depth to my swing. But the rest of the setup here is to make sure that I'm not coming over the top and just kind of throwing my hands at the ball. You can kind of see that one we hit a little bit low towards the heel because we kind of had that throw action still. But for the most part, that swing was pretty on plane. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up another ball here. Again, just kind of working on the same thing. Really, when I'm working at lunch, I only am hitting about 25 or 30 balls within that hour time frame. And I'm just being very, very meticulous and being very mindful of what I'm doing within each swing. So that one you can see felt much better and my chest was actually like working through. Like sometimes when I go back and watch these swings, I can kind of see that over the top and then that throw action a little bit. But I actually like the way that one felt in kind of the backswing warm up there. And you can see that one was much straighter, still hitting a little bit behind the ball, not exactly ball first contact there, but pretty good. So let's go ahead and move on to the second video here. And whenever I'm kind of doing that like over the top chop, what I'll do is I'll go and do some one arm swings, especially the trail arm, because if you do that like over the top chop, there's no way you're hitting the ball. But you can kind of see in that swing there, I just was doing the trail arm swing, and we were much more on plane, and we just kind of hit that ball flush and perfectly. So watch a couple more here. I'll also put the hand and tuck it behind the elbow because that keeps my body moving through. Sometimes you can just kind of time it up perfectly, throwing the hand, but if I put this here, then I have to rotate my chest through the ball. And this really gets me feeling connected. Doing some more slow-mo, feeling where the face is at in space and time, and then making sure we're just swinging on plane there. So, gonna keep this nice and short and sweet. That's it for today. But you can kind of see last week we were really working on getting everything, I should say really working. We are still working on getting everything just to stay connected and not have that over-the-top chop. So, with that in mind, let's go ahead and move on to our next segment. All right. The next segment is Manifest Your Destiny. So kind of like I mentioned, this is the title segment of each episode. So Swing Thoughts, the series, remember the premise is to kind of go through what I'm working on to continuously improve my swing. But Manifest Your Destiny is the segment focused on how we can continue to strive to achieve our goals or what actionable steps we could take. So as you can see, I have migrated down to my office here. We got the standing desk, and I just figured it'd be easier to do the presentation in PowerPoint from my computer, just like I would be doing at work if I'm doing some sort of training or presentation. So to recap, the first episode was on goal setting. So to briefly go through what we talked about last time is we were focused on how to take that first step and create a clear goal of something that we want to accomplish, either in our sports, in our life, whatever it is. I'm going to be using a lot of golf metaphors throughout these episodes because that's kind of the theme of the channel is golf, but you can take and apply these trainings to any aspect of your life and they will work just as well. So last time we talked about goal setting, clearly defining what we're trying to accomplish. We had short-term and long-term goals for small things or larger things we wanted to achieve in life. And then some tips that we covered were being specific in what we're trying to achieve, coming up with some methods to track and measure our progress, and then doing some periodic review to make sure that we're on track to achieve their goals. So today, this episode, we are going to be talking about purpose-driven action. And just to briefly give you guys the, dictionary, whatever definition, is actions and decisions that are guided by a clear and meaningful purpose beyond just achieving financial or personal gain. So, yada yada, that's the dictionary definition. Basically, how I like to break it down is we set our goals, and then the actions that we are taking are very strategically aligned with what we're trying to accomplish. So if you think about it from like a company perspective, your company probably has like policies or defining characteristics of how they operate. So as long as your actions are within that core operating procedure, then you're ultimately working towards achieving that goal in kind of the deeper, purposeful way that your company might want you to. From a personal sense, it could be more aligned with your deeper values or your personal aspirations. So if you wanted to be a pro golfer or a YouTuber, what sort of like definitive, purposeful steps are you taking to try and achieve that? So this is kind of what we're going to be talking about today, how we can go about making our actions purposeful and why this is important. So why is this important? Because time is limited. So we are not all pros at golf or whatever it is that you're trying to achieve. But again, using golf metaphors here. So we are not all pros. We don't have the luxury that we can just practice and train all day. We don't have physios and massage therapists and personal trainers and dietitians and all this stuff. So how can we get the most out of the time that we have? So this is where purpose-driven action comes in. We have to be very mindful of what we're doing because we only have a limited amount of time with which to do it. So we have to be as efficient as possible and as strategic and as targeted as possible. So to give you guys an example, here is just a scorecard of what I'm doing when I'm playing golf. So I'll keep my regular score, but then I'll be keeping track of fairways hit, greens in regulation, and number of putts. Now, if you guys subscribe to some other things, I haven't got into them yet. It's definitely something I'm going to look to investigate in the future for myself personally. But like a Decade Golf, for example, or the Tiger 5, those sorts of things. These are in a very similar vein of like data points that you can track. But one thing that I like about tracking these data points is we can identify what is our worst skill, and then that's the thing that we should be focusing on. I have found that throughout my athletic career and my personal and work career, the fastest way to go up the ladder or have personal improvement or get better at a sport is to work on your weakness. If you can make your worst skill your best skill, then that will be the fastest path to growth and improvement. Just think about the general kind of growth curve. Like it's typically kind of this fast rising slope. And then as you get towards the higher skill level, the 80, 90 yard percentile, it sort of plateaus off. And then you only start to see those incremental gains where the very like high skill is required. But that first part of the graph is very, very actually like high slope or fast increasing. So if we can kind of identify the area that is the weakest and scale that up. And then we move on to our next weakest point. We scale that up. And we're just continually scaling up our weakest point. That is how we're going to be able to continually to grow faster. So this is just kind of background. And for me personally, all my sort of actions or things that I do are kind of data driven, or I'm always using some sort of reference or numbers or things to help guide my decision making. All right. I had to do a quick cut there because I was running out of breath and I needed some water, but back into it here. So that pretty much covers everything explaining what purpose-driven action is. We're trying to be very strategic and targeted in what we're doing, making sure it's aligned with our goals and what we're trying to achieve. We're not just doing some random action for the sake of doing it because our time is limited. We need to be very strategic and focused in what we're trying to do. We're not like a pro where we have all day to work on what we're trying to achieve. So that's all well and good. Let's go ahead and wrap up this conversation by taking a look at an example of what this might look like for golf specifically. So if I wanted to be doing some purpose-driven action, or we'll just say practicing with a purpose here, is what I typically do is I used to just go there and kind of like angrily beat balls just because I'm like, oh, you know, I'm building up the strength, I'm doing whatever. But that wasn't really helping my swing, especially not on the course. So what I found now is to kind of have better practices for me are to have a nice slow methodical practice rather than beating balls for hours. Maybe I'll only do a small or medium bucket instead of like the jumbo or the large. And what I'll do is I'll try to be very mindful and cognizant of what I'm doing with each swing. So it's hard to keep a consistent golf swing if you're just beating balls and every 3 swings you're changing your swing thought and then you don't have the same consistent swing thought. So when you go out on the course, that's going to be replicated. You're going to have different swing thoughts every couple swings. It's not going to be consistent. Sometimes you're going to fat the ball, sometimes you're going to thin the ball. So what we need to do is we need to be very mindful, and we need to try and recreate competition scenarios on the driving range. So what I'll typically do in this kind of slow, mindful practice is every shot that I hit, I'll be stepping behind the ball and doing my same pre-shot routine that I would do on the course. So I'll step behind it, line it up, get into spot, do my 2 waggles, and then take my actual swing. And then by doing that on the driving range, I'm kind of programming my mind or my brain to just kind of work. So when I get on the golf course and I do the same thing, my body knows to just follow those same steps to execute the swing. So that's just kind of one example of how you guys can go about doing this purpose-driven action. So be very methodical, kind of recreate what you're trying to do on the course, and then you'll hopefully see better results. So to give you guys even just like an example of a pro that I like to watch that I see do this kind of stuff is when I'm watching Dustin Johnson. So I happened to see him a couple weekends ago, but when he's on the range, even when he's just hitting wedges, he is cleaning off the face of his club and the grooves in between every shot to make sure that he's recreating those competition scenarios or practicing how he's playing or competing to have the best results possible. So with that in mind, that wraps up our episode 2 section of Manifest Your Destiny. We'll go ahead and move on to the next section. All right, we are back down here in the simulator room for the third and final segment of this episode. And this segment is called PGA. So yes, same acronym as the PGA Tour, but this one stands for Posture, Grip, and Alignment. So this segment is largely focused on avoiding injuries and health, but it's really those kind of 3 things in the pre-shot routine that not only cause a lot of issues in the actual golf swing itself, but is usually where most of the injuries stem from. So if you have really bad posture or something's funky going on with your grip, and in golf we're always not even because of the way we're only swinging on one side, and we're swinging very aggressively. So if one of those things is wrong and we're repeatedly just like beating balls on it, we're going to eventually get injured. So if you guys remember in the first episode, and again, you can go back and watch it if you want to, but we were mainly talking about anterior pelvic tilt. So not kind of sticking our butt out and having this hip rotated, but actually tucking it under and having a nice neutral posture when we're standing, so that we're kind of perfectly balanced. So that was what the first episode was on. We were really talking about avoiding hip injuries. Again, if you're interested, you can go back and watch it. But today, I want to move on from the P and then focus on the G. So we're going to be talking about the grip. So now I'm not going to sit here and go through how you guys should do a grip. I actually have a video series of a guy that I really like to watch. It is the Wadden grip series. I'll put a link for that in the description down below as well. But in his grip series, he actually recommends using the 10-finger overlay, which is what I do. So, you know, line up here, and then the kind of pinky is just overlapping on top of the index finger. So a lot of the really famous guys, you know, Tiger, Jordan, and them, they'll use the interlock. But his video series, and I really like it, it's been pretty good for avoiding injury and just kind of feeling like a nice neutral grip, is the 10-finger overlay. But the main thing I want to talk about today is kind of one injury that I've been dealing with and how we can kind of avoid that. So recently, I've been getting a lot of pain in the top of my thumb. So kind of the tendon or muscle that goes over the top of the thumb, I've been having a ton of pain. And this is kind of caused from a combination of me just kind of getting lazy with my grip and not being very mindful or meticulous of how I'm lining up the grip each time, and then actually a flaw in my swing. So one thing, I mean, there's many things to like about Scotty Scheffler, but one thing I kind of notice about him when I'm watching is even, no matter what he's doing, he's always very meticulous in his setup and his grip. So I think we can all learn something from that just in the pre-shot routine of making sure to be mindful and always going back and checking our grip, because if we let it slip and we just get lazy and lazy and lazy, suddenly we can be in a really strong or a really weak grip. But what I had going on with mine is I was so focused on trying to get this kind of like 90-degree neutral position that I was starting to have my thumb really far extended up the shaft. So less of this more like kind of like a painter or like an artist with the club. I was really trying to think I needed to be like 90 degrees neutral here, and my thumb was getting really far. Then when I was gripping over with my right hand, I was really putting a lot of pressure on that thumb. So even just in the pre-shot, that was causing me a lot of issues. But then when I was taking my swing, I've been trying to really work on getting this separation, but what was happening kind of the slow-mo video is instead of getting shallow when I was getting that separation with the shaft, I was just kind of letting this fall. And then you can kind of see now I'm in this really super steep position, but my hands are like this. And the only way I can athletically get myself back to the ball is to kind of pull my hands down to kind of steeply line up the face and hit the ball. So that kind of action was really putting a lot of pulley and just kind of like ripping my thumb out of its socket. So the reason I go into this long exaggerated story is I almost kind of will use feelings of achiness or soreness as kind of like a mental alert or a notification to me that, hey, maybe something is going wrong with my swing that's causing that pain or that issue. In a perfect world, I would just have an Adam Scott swing where I'm just like totally neutral and it just looks flawless and easy. And that's what we're trying to go for eventually. But this kind of PGA segment is really focused on how can we avoid injuries and just fix these things in the pre-shot routine to kind of fix our actual swing without having to put a lot of pressure or strain on our body. So I know that was a lot to cover. Again, this series is very much a work in progress. I'm trying to get better with each episode. So if there were tidbits you found useful, let me know in the comments down below. I can focus on those things. I can kind of trim the fat, so to speak, make these series shorter and more concise. But hopefully some of that information was helpful for you guys. All right, might as well just wrap up the episode while we're down here. As always, thank you guys for watching. Greatly appreciate it. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I do like to see that subscription number go up, and it does help the channel a lot. But in all seriousness, if you guys do leave a comment with what you liked or areas of improvement, that does really help the channel a lot because I can know what I can do better for you guys or how I can make the channel better. So thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, and I look forward to seeing you guys next time.